ignorance also, as it can be said, when it comes to how to tax plan, my dear friends. Interestingly, in the last few years, there have been some amendments in this provision which have limited tax planning. Having said that, there are still multiple ways for you to plan and reduce your taxes. So in today's session, I'll not only be taking you through what is the major aspects regarding the taxation, what are the tips as to how to tax plan, but also what are some important considerations when you are filing your return. Because I'm sure all of you must be busy getting ready to file the returns or already started filing the returns. What are some critical developments which have happened this year when you are filing the returns, my dear friends? The first thing that we have to start off with is what are the key questions in this area. So can you tell me what will be taxed in income from house property? See, commonly there are 5 heads of income for taxation. Your income from salaries, income from house property, your profits and gains from your business, capital gains, and finally what we call your income from other sources. And then after this, you have your tax deductions, your ATC, ATD, your LIC payments, PPF payments, Mediclaim, all these are the deductions you claim. So having given this background, when we start with how will it be taxed, my dear friends? Let me ask you this. Under which head of income will you tax your income from house property? I think all the answers that you have already started giving in the box are very, very obvious, because you will be taxing it under the head income from house property. Now, let me ask you another question. Suppose you are getting a rental income from a vacant plot of land. I have a vacant plot of land. There is a restaurant who is there next to my land. They are saying that we are running a very, very busy restaurant. Evening, a lot of traffic is coming. So I want to take your vacant land and make it a parking. I want to make it a parking facility. So they are paying a rent and they are converting this and making this land a parking facility. My dear friends, where will this be taxed? Will it be taxed under income from other sources, or will it be taxed under some other head? Now here the answer is very clear, as some people have put in the answers. It is income from other sources. So therefore we can ascertain one more thing from this. What is rental income from commercial property taxed? House property we have discussed. Land we have discussed. What about commercial property? Where will it come? Because let us assume I have a park like RMZ Millennia Park is one of the most popular parks in South India. So let us assume I have a RMZ Millennia Park I'm running. I am getting some income from this. So where will this be taxed? Will it be taxed under income from house property, or will it be taxed under some other head? Now, here is the interesting point, my dear friends. Even though many people are putting profit and gains from business and profession in the answer, you will have to see what is the nature of business of the assessee. So therefore, normally, if I, Abhishek, as an individual, I am getting income from my commercial property, it will be taxed as income from house property. Don't be deceived by the name, my dear friends. Even though the name says house property, it will still be taxing commercial properties also under this head. Now, let me ask another question. I have agricultural land. One farmer comes and asks me, Abhishek, I want to take this agricultural land on rent. So therefore, I give him an agricultural land on rent, my dear friends. Now, this farmer is growing a lot of crops over there and he is doing a very, very good job. So then end of the year, I have to offer my income to tax. Under which head will I offer this? So interestingly, the law carves an exception for agricultural income. If I'm giving the land to a farmer and that farmer is doing agricultural activity there, then the income is exempt from tax, my dear friends. So this is an agricultural income exemption that is specifically carved only for your agricultural income. It's a very, very interesting point, because that same farmer, if instead of having a farm over there, he takes the property from me, the agricultural land, a farmer is taking on rent. And what is that farmer doing? The farmer decides on that land, he wants to start an automobile factory. So he starts, okay, I am going to make automobile parts. I am going to sell it to an automobile unit. So in this case, again, will it be exempt because it's agricultural land? The person who's taken it happens to be a farmer. The activity that's going on there, I don't have any control. But here, my dear friends, the exemption is very clear. It is only given in agricultural activities, or there is a farmhouse, or there is a go down or a storage unit for agricultural purposes only. Only then can you enjoy this exemption, my dear friends. Otherwise, you will have to tax it as income from other sources. So here we are very clear when it comes to what is going to be taxed in these examples we have discussed. So therefore, from all four of this, one thing we can infer, it is that your house property taxation is based on ownership. So therefore, one more question I'm going to ask. Now, when I asked commercial property where it will be taxed, many people told in the answer chat box saying profits and gains from business and profession. So now I'm telling you very, very clearly, I am in the business of constructing flats, commercial buildings, and I want to let it out. I'm a real estate business person. So I construct flats, I construct commercial, I let it, I'm going to sell it. So what happens is I'm not able to find a buyer. So I decide till I find a buyer, why don't I let it out for some time? So I've let out this income, my dear friends. Here, can you tell me which head of income it will be taxed? I'm in the business of selling real estate. I'm in the business of constructing and selling real estate. And here what I'm doing is I'm letting it out till I find a buyer. So what head of income will it be? So we are seeing multitude of answers. Some people are saying business income. Some people are saying it's other sources. And some people have said income from house property. Now here is a very interesting point, my dear friends. And this is the crux when it comes to income from house property. Income from house property is taxed on the basis of ownership. If you are a owner of a property, then you will be taxed under income from house property only and not under any other head. To clarify little further, because most of you will say, I already have started getting those questions saying, sir, you are saying I'm in the business of real estate. Does that not mean it is my stock in trade? We have studied all the way from 12th standard accounts. If you are doing business in a certain object, that becomes your stock in trade. If I'm selling pencils, pencils is my stock in trade. If I'm selling tables, tables is my stock in trade. If I'm selling cars, cars is my stock in trade. Similarly, if I'm selling houses, houses are my stock in trade. And any income that I get from my stock in trade is normally associated with business. So Abhishek, why are you saying it is house property? Sir, I am not saying it is house property. What you must see has been determined by the Supreme Court in an interesting case called Chennai Properties, where they said we will tax based on ownership. But if the regular business of the assessee is to let out properties, if the regular business is to let out properties, then in that case, it can be your business income. If not, in every other case, Abhishek has a property, he is a chartered accountant. His business is not letting out commercial property. So therefore, whether it is commercial, whether it is residential, I don't care. It must be taxed under income from house property only. It cannot be taxed under profits and gains from business and profession. So therefore, the clear point that we have all understood is the basis of taxation under income from house property is the ownership of the same. So therefore, if I take it on lease, even if I have taken it on lease, my dear friends, even in those cases, I will not admit it. Even if year on year, I'm renewing the lease. Almost 60 years, I've been there in the same place. Year on year, I'm taking. So that owner also knows, definitely he'll only continue, sir. So even then, you may assume effectively I'm the owner. But for the purposes of taxation under house property income, it is merely taxed on ownership, my dear friends. Otherwise, you do not get the standard deduction and other benefits you are going to see in the following slides. So let us go a little bit further into house property income. So commonly, what are the different types of house property incomes that you will have? You have what you call a self-occupied house property, which means I myself am living in the property, me and my family are staying there. Therefore, it is called self-occupied house property, my dear friends. When I have self-occupied house property, what is the tax that I have to pay on that? Nothing, because I have not earned any rental income. It is what we call a nil property. Then we have something called a vacant property, where I have let out the property means I'm getting rental income. If I'm self-occupied means I am staying there. But if it is vacant, that means I have not been able to let it out, or I've chosen not to let it out. So therefore that property lies as it is, my dear friends. Now here, let me raise a very, very important question over here. If I am letting it out, I have to offer the rental income. If I am self-occupying, the value is nil. My dear friends, let us take a circumstance. I already saw an answer. Okay, in deemed owner, what will happen in deemed ownership? We will get there. We will get to deemed ownership. But my point is this, my dear friends. My point is this. When I have more than 2 self-occupied houses, I am owner of 3 houses. I am owning 3 houses. Then in those cases, what the law says is up to 2 properties, we will allow you to show it as self-occupied. If all my 3 houses are vacant, then 2 houses, I can show it as self-occupied. So what will happen to the third house? My dear friends, what will happen to the third house? This is where we have a concept purely for taxation, which is known as notional taxation, my dear friends. What the income tax law says is, sir, if you are owner of 1 house property, you are staying there, value is nil. You go away. Don't worry about tax. Sir, I am the owner of 2 house properties. Both are vacant. One house I am staying, 1 house my parents are staying. Don't worry. Income from house, up to 2 house properties, you can take it as self-occupied. Don't pay tax. You please move on. Sir, I am the owner of 3 house properties. I am staying in 1 house. My parents are staying in a house. My children are staying in the 3rd house. Please wait. This is where the income tax is telling you to wait. Income tax says up to 2 self-occupied house properties, you can show it as nil value self-occupied. But when you have a 3rd property, we have a concept known as notional taxation, my dear friends. What is notional taxation? They will calculate what is known as the annual value of the house property and put it to tax. So let us now come to the fundamental part of your income from house property, which is how you are going to calculate the tax. Ultimately, that is the question. We have given so many examples. We have discussed so many scenarios. So how are you going to tax all of this, my dear friends? You have a concept known as gross annual value. Please look at this table over here that you can see on the screen. This table will give you clear analysis as to how you have to calculate your income from house property. And those people who are asking for the format, don't worry, we will be sending you the entire presentation. So you will get this also, you will also be able to see it in your free time. But to understand it a little bit further, let us start with the first value. You have what is known as a gross annual value. From that, we reduce the municipal taxes that are paid. Then we get what is known as a net annual value. And then from that, we reduce a deduction under section 24 given by the law, where you can claim standard deduction and at the rate of 30% and interest on borrowed capital. Now, wait a minute. You may be thinking, for all properties, can I claim this? Now, let me first clarify. When you have a self-occupied house property, my dear friends, the gross annual value is nil. The gross annual value is nil. So therefore, if any municipal taxes I am paying, that I am paying water tax or property tax, then I cannot claim that in my self-occupied house property, my dear friends, because I don't have any income at all. But if it is let out, then I can adjust it. So now let us come to this gross annual value. What is gross annual value, my dear friends? Because it has, once again, little bit more detail. So let us take a scenario where I have a house and I'm letting it out on rent. I'm getting a rental income from that house. Then we are all clear. We think that we have to offer whatever rental income we are getting. So let us take a scenario. I have a 5,000 square feet house in the center, in the heart of Nungambakam High Road. I have a house, and that is the heart of the Chennai city where all the properties are most expensive. So what I'm doing is I am letting this house out to, let's assume, my friend Mr. Ravi Chandran. I am letting it out to him at a rental amount of 5,000 rupees per month. Now, is the true value of this rent correct? If somebody else wants another house at the same size of the house, 5,000 square feet in the middle of Nungambakam, will he be able to get it on rent for 5,000? Now, that is the question that you have to answer. Because your assumption that we have to offer 5,000 rupees per month, I'm getting 5,000 into 12, 60,000 is my rental income. That is my gross annual value. Will be incorrect, my dear friends. It may be what you are getting, but that is not what the tax law is expecting. What the tax law says is it's given 5 steps. This is how you need to calculate it. Well, how we should calculate, sir? 5 steps. Step number 1, find out a reasonable expected rent. Look at that wording there. find out a reasonable expected rent. So they want you to find out what a normal person at arm's length, what he would pay as rent for that particular place. If I'm renting it out to my son, I will say you just to pay 1,000 rupees enough, I'm happy. Some people will say you don't have to pay rent at all, it will be nil. So does that mean it is vacant? No, it is still let out as per law, my dear friends. So I must find out what is the reasonable expected rent. So actual rent I'm getting is 5,000, but a reasonable rent for that same place may be 50,000. So therefore, reasonable rent is 50,000 rupees. Step 2, what is the actual rent I've got is only 5,000. Step 3, I must choose whichever is higher, whether it is 5,000 or whether it's 50,000. So therefore, naturally, 50,000 is the higher amount. So that becomes my gross annual. And then what we have something called calculate the loss due to vacancy. I saw a lot of questions have come on this vacancy. I'll come to that, my dear friends. Don't get confused with it. Let us remain at step 1 to step 3 over here. So therefore, even if you are getting a lower value of rent, your tenant may be someone who's been there for a very long time. He's saying, sir, I will be here, I'm paying regularly. So you're saying, okay, fine, very nice person he is. So I will continue to collect the same rent for you. I will not give any escalation. I don't want to increase it. You continue to stay there. But at the same time, the market value of your property may be going out. So if you went to a third party, some other person for rent, you may be able to collect much more rent. So if the reasonable rent is substantially different from what rent you are collecting, my dear friends, you are required as per law to offer that to taxes. You are required by law to offer that to taxes. Now let us take another scenario. I have not received my rent. We are in a COVID world, and what happened last month or last year rather is that many people were not able to earn money, or they were to stay with lower salaries. So people were not able to pay rents. Many owners, landlords were so kind, very large-hearted, where they told their tenant, sir, you don't worry. You don't have to pay rent this month for me. We will take care of it later. You pay next year. You don't have to pay for 3 months. I will waive it for you. So in all of these scenarios, the big question, because we are all talking about notional rent, no? Whenever notional comes, notional is not going to see whether COVID, non-COVID, etc. So therefore, it is the assumption that I have got the rent for 7 months. 5 months I have not got the rent, not because it is vacant, but because it has been waived or it has not been paid by the tenant by the offense. So if there is a scenario, even if you are charging normal rent, forget your higher municipal rent or reasonable rent, etc. Even if I am charging the normal rent and somebody does not pay that rent to me, should I offer it to tax? So this is what the law says, my dear friends. It says you must offer it to tax, bar certain conditions. If these conditions are satisfied, then you need not offer it to tax. What are these conditions? So it is what we call unrealized rent, my dear friends. They are saying, first, you must check whether the tenancy is bona fide, whether really there is a tenant, whether you have an agreement, whether it is genuine or not. If all of those conditions are satisfied, then we say it is a bona fide. Second, they're saying you must have taken steps to vacate the property from the tenant. So tenant, you should have told, please leave. You send a letter to him. I request you to please leave. There are many circumstances where tenants refuse to leave the property. The owner is saying, please leave, sir. Why are you staying there? I need to use that house. My relative is coming from the US. I need them to stay over here. So here what they will say, sir, I cannot leave. You do whatever you want. You take legal action. So you are stuck with a person, and sometimes in our courts to get a decision, it takes several months or many cases, several years also. So therefore, what the income tax wants you to satisfy, that you have taken the steps to vacate the tenant. So you write multiple letters, please leave, sir. Why are you still staying? Referring to my earlier letters that I've sent you 5 times, you've still not left the property. So please leave the property. So you have to submit letters like that. Then third, you have to clarify that that same tenant, whoever is not paying your amount, he is not staying in some other property. So that income tax, you're not cheating them by saying, see, sir, he is not paying here, but you have allowed him to stay in some other property of yours. He is paying rent over there. So therefore, in order to avoid fraudulent practices to reduce the taxes, they have now said that you have a defaulting tenant. That defaulting tenant should not be staying in any other of your properties. So that is one basic criteria which they are expecting from the taxpayer. Then they are saying, look at the last point, very, very interesting. the assessee should have taken enough steps to institute proceedings to recover the unpaid dues. So I should have taken legal action. I should have issued legal notices. I must have tried my best to start getting him to vacate the premises using proper force or proper action legally. So only then, if it is satisfied, can you claim it as unrealized rent. So if these conditions are satisfied, no need to offer it to tax, my dear. You need not offer it to tax. So therefore, now once again, that comes to my question. COVID time, you have not collected rent. You are filing returns now for the COVID year, whichever year that elapsed. You are filing the return now. So this is a big question for all of you. My client or I'm an assessee who has not been able to collect rent. What should I do? Is the tenancy bona fide? Yes. Have I taken steps to vacate the tenant? My dear friends, I am not trying to make him vacate. So therefore, will it constitute unrealized rent is a big question. Now, in the later part of the presentation, I'm going to touch upon something known as casual vacancy. I'm going to touch upon as casual vacancy. We will have to go there and check whether it is applicable. But as it stands, so far, whatever we have done so far, it appears if your tenant was not paying you rent in the COVID period and you were large-hearted and kind enough to tell him, you don't have to stay, you don't have to pay, it is okay, I know you're going through financial difficulty. Then it appears, my dear friends, on a notional basis, you may be forced to have paid if you have more than 2 properties. That is the critical point. If you have up to 2 properties, even those months that he has not paid, you can take it as if you are self-occupied. Even the months your tenant has not paid, you can treat it as self-occupied as long as it is up to 2 properties. The moment it becomes the 3rd property, if you have already 2 house properties which you are showing as self-occupied, then you cannot do this. Now let me ask you another question. I saw this, somebody has asked in the chat box saying, sir, I have 2 properties. Both properties I have let out. Both properties I have let out. I am paying rent for a property I am living in. So therefore, since I have 2 properties and I'm not showing anything as self-occupied, whatever properties I have let out, can I show that as self-occupied and show nil value from them? My dear friends, if you are getting any income, any rental income, you have to offer it to tax under income from house property, even if you have extra self-occupied slots that is remaining unfilled. That is one basic premise of the income tax law. Because if you don't offer it and later on they want to make an addition on the same, it will be likely added in your income from other sources, which is taxable at the slab rate and no standard deduction. Instead, you yourself offer it under income from house property. You yourself can claim 30% standard deduction and reduce the tax. So that is better for you to do. So just because you have open self-occupied house property slots does not mean you can do tax planning and say nil value from the same when you are actually getting a rent, my dear friends. So second, let us come now to municipal taxes. What is municipal taxes? Any property tax, commercial tax that I'm paying for my house property, water tax that I'm paying for my property, all of this is what we call municipal taxes or property taxes. So any amount that I'm paying as property taxes or any amount I'm paying as water taxes, I can claim it during that year on a payment basis. Please note this point. When it comes to offering to income, you are offering it on accrual basis. But when it comes to municipal taxes, it is done purely on a payment basis, my dear friends. So this year I have to pay the tax. I have not paid the tax. Year is finished. So when I'm filing my return, tax payable is so much amount. Can I claim that payable amount in the current year? I cannot. But next year, I'm paying both for the previous year also. I'm paying for the current year also in the next year. At that time, I can claim for both. So on payment basis, whatever amount I'm paying, for example, many of you last year, you would have seen your clients or you yourself may have first faced a circumstance in Tamil Nadu where a lot of the property tax inspectors for old dues, they all came and started collecting large dues from the assessees. So in these circumstances, can you claim the old dues also in the current year? Yes, you can definitely claim the same because on payment basis you are claiming. So definitely whatever water tax, property tax you have paid even for earlier years in the current year, you can definitely claim the same in the current year. But please note, this can be adjusted only if you're earning rental income. If you're self-occupied and the value is nil, You cannot adjust the property tax or municipal tax against the same, my dear friends. Next, let us come to the most important part of your house property income, which is your deductions from the house property income, my dear friends. You see, commonly there are two key deductions to the income from house property. The first one being a standard deduction at 30%. Now, this is mandated by law. If you are getting any rental income from house property, be it notional basis or real basis, then you can claim a 30% standard deduction on that. 30%, whatever is your net annual value, gross annual value, whatever rent you have calculated is your gross annual value, less whatever property taxes, water taxes you have paid, you get what is known as a net annual value. On that net annual value, 30% allowed as a free deduction. They are saying 30% you will leave, 70% balance if you pay it is enough. So therefore, 30% is what we call a standard deduction, my dear friends. But the next point is the most critical one. Interest on borrowed capital. If you have any housing loan that you have taken, then the interest paid on the same, you can claim it as a deduction from your house property. But when I am claim it as a deduction from a house property, what are certain important conditions? Because in the last 4 years, my dear friends, in the budget, there have been very, very interesting developments as to how you need to adjust this interest income from interest paid on the house property loans that you have taken. The first thing you must note, if it is self-occupied. If my house is self-occupied, can I claim whatever interest I've paid on a housing loan? Yes, I can definitely claim the interest I've paid on housing loan, but I can claim it only to the extent of 2 lakhs. Even if I'm paying interest of 10 lakh rupees on my housing loan, year on year, I'm paying 10 lakh rupees as the interest. Then also, sorry, my dear friends, if it is self-occupied, the limit is capped at rupees 2 lakhs only. I cannot claim more. I cannot claim more even though the actual payment is more. Next question. Sir, I've let it out. First case is self-occupied. Next case, I've let out my house property. Here in this case, can I set it off, my dear friends? I cannot set it off. I cannot set it off. So therefore, I can set it off, but I can set it off without any limit. I can set it off without any limit. So when I say it's without any limit, you must be wondering, those of you who are familiar with the latest adjustments, you will be thinking, somewhere I read up to 2 lakhs only you can claim. So somebody has put in the question also saying 2 lakhs. How much can I claim up to 2 lakhs? Yes, to clarify further, when I say it can be claimed up to 2 lakhs, it is per annum only. It is not per month. If you are paying 2 lakhs of interest per month, then you must have purchased a very large property. Don't worry, you cannot claim it. It's maximum. It is capped off to 2 lakh rupees only if it is self-occupied. But let out now, I'm saying it is limitless. I'm saying it is limitless. What does this mean? What does this mean, my dear friends? We will take a numerical scenario. Let us take a numerical scenario. The first case, as you can see on the top of the screen, I have one house property. That property is self-occupied. So rental income that I'm earning from that property is nil. The interest, however, that I've paid on that property is 3 lakhs. Remember, I told you, my dear friends, if it is self-occupied house property, my interest is capped. It stops at 2 lakh rupees. So even if I paid 10 lakhs, even if I paid 20 lakhs for the year, I cannot adjust that. I have to stop at 2 lakh rupees. So my net income from that first house property is minus 2 lakhs. It is minus 2 lakhs. Now my second house property, as you can see on the screen, it is let out and I've not taken any loan on that property. I'm getting 4 lakh rupees as rent. So my annual value or my rental income is 4 lakh rupees. Interest is 0. So therefore my net income from that property is 4 lakh rupees, my dear friends. Now I have a third house property. This house property, I have let it out again. But on this house property, I have taken a loan. On this house property, I have taken a loan. So what is the rental income I'm paying on this? Let us assume I'm getting a rental income of 3 lakh rupees, my dear friends. But the interest that I've paid for the entire year on this housing loan is 7,50,000. I've paid 7,50,000. Many of you read 2 lakhs, up to 2 lakhs only you can claim. But here, if you can see the third column, what is the interest allowed? I have taken it to be 7,50,000. A lot of question marks. So many people raising their hands now saying, Abhishek, how can you do that? It is not restricted to 2 lakhs only. Now, this is a very, very important point, my dear friends. Please note, because in all the discussions I've had, a number of cases that I've handled, a lot of people, even chartered accountants, many professionals also have this doubt. When you have a let out house property, the interest paid can be claimed limitless. Even 50 lakhs interest I have paid, I can claim it. But look at the calculation that I have put on the screen, my dear friends, over here. Look at the final column, because that is only critical. Within the head of house property, I told you there are 5 heads of income: salaries, house property, business, capital gains, and other sources. Within the single head of house property, if my property is let out, then limitless I can claim whatever I want. I can keep adjusting it. In this case, for the third property, I have paid interest of 7,50,000. My total rental income itself from all the 3 house properties is only 4 lakhs plus 3 lakhs, which is 7 lakhs. So the entire 7,50,000 plus the 2 lakhs loss that I've got from my house property 1, I can set it off against this. Now, many of you may be wondering, Abhishek, why for house property 1, only 2 lakhs you are restricting it to? You have paid 3 lakhs, no? Here also you have said 7,50,000, but you are saying in intra-head, inside the head, it is limitless. But for let out, for self-occupied house property, you are saying it's restricted to 2 lakhs. That is the key point, my dear friends. When it comes to your self-occupied house property, even if I have rental income of 10 lakh rupees, I have 10 lakh rupees rental income from all my houses put together. Then also, if the property on which I have taken a loan is self-occupied, even if the interest I've paid is more than 2 lakhs, I have to restrict it to 2 lakhs only. But if my property is let out, then I can adjust to whatever extent I want inside the head. If I've paid interest of 10 lakhs, I have a rental income of 10 lakhs, fully I can adjust. I've paid interest income of 10 lakhs, interest on housing loan of 10 lakhs. I've got rental income of 12 lakhs. I can adjust it and balance 2 lakhs only I have to pay. Now, third scenario, I have paid interest on housing loan of 10 lakhs. I've got a rental income of only 7 lakhs. What is my net income from house property? It may seem net it is 3 lakh rupees, but dear friends, note this point: 3 lakh rupees loss actually in this scenario. You take the scenario on your screen itself. From all 3 house properties put together, after adjusting the interest on the borrowing, my net loss from the house property is 2,50,000. 2,50,000. Till 3 years back, my dear friends, I could adjust all my interest from house property against all the heads of income, limitless. I could adjust. I have lost from house property 10 crores. I paid interest of 10 crores on one borrowing. Some bank is very happy. They're saying first year itself you pay entirely 10 crores on interest. So I pay it. So I can claim the entire 10 crores and I could adjust it against all my incomes. Salary income also I can adjust. I can adjust against all my other heads of income, my dear friends. A huge benefit was there till 3 or 4 years back when the government brought a limit. Now, you all, I started by saying everyone read 2 lakh rupees, there's a limit. This is the 2 lakh rupees, my dear friends. Your 2 lakhs limit, when you have let out your house property, that limit is for adjusting against other heads of income. In the scenario you see on the screen, my net loss from the house property, as you can see, is 2,50,000. So I can adjust against other heads of income only to the extent of 2 lakhs. So what happens to the balance 50,000? Has it gone to waste, Abhishek? No, my dear friends, you can carry it forward. You can take it to next year. So therefore, next year I can adjust this 50,000. But please wait. When I carry forward a loss, when I carry forward a house property loss, I cannot adjust it against other heads of income. Like that house property, first house property self-occupied, I told you, your limit is restricted inside the house property head only, my dear friends. You cannot go beyond it. So therefore, I can carry it forward next year. 50,000 I can adjust, but only inside the house property income. Why this is very important, I'll tell you, is because many assessees, they had planned their taxes based on the loans that they had taken. So 3 years back, when this amendment was brought in by the government, my dear friends, many assessees were affected because they had already taken 20-year loan, planning their taxes so that the interest payment, they can adjust it against their other income. So therefore, this is definitely not a beneficial adjustment, not a beneficial amendment to the assessees, but it is an amendment that is very much in existence today. So therefore, it is very critical for you to plan your taxes around this. So ultimately, that is the question, right? How do I plan my taxes around these limitations? See, the third thing that I want to tell you here is pre-EMI interest. Many of you, when you take a housing loan, let us assume I'm buying a property that is under construction. One big builder, let us assume DLF is the builder. So DLF announced, I'm going to construct a new property in the heart of the city. So obviously the value is going to be very good. We all know that. So all of us are rushing to buy this property. So we book the property. So what happens? We are taking a loan. We are making the payments towards the property, my dear friends. As we make these payments to the property, one thing we realize is the builder said he'll complete it in 3 years, but it has become 4 years. It has become 5 years. It has become 6 years. I have still taken a loan. I am still repaying the loan. But what is this classified as? This is what we commonly call a pre-EMI interest. Till the completion of the property or till the scheduled date of the property, my dear friends, it is what we call the pre-EMI interest. This pre-EMI interest that you are paying, till the extent it becomes a normal EMI, the pre-EMI, the question mark is, can I claim it? Because unless the property is completed, it is not income from house property, correct? Only when the property is complete can it become a property in which anybody can reside in or habitable. So therefore, till it comes to that stage, it is not income from house property. I need not offer to it. But the moment it is constructed, the moment it becomes habitable, it becomes income from house property, my dear friends. So at that stage, you will ask, whatever interest I'm paying now, I can adjust it against the rental income that I've got. Sir, what about the interest I've paid before? For 5 years, I've been paying interest, pre-EMI interest. What do I do with that? So this is the interesting point. Where you have paid any pre-EMI interest, my dear friends, you can claim the same in 5 installments. So whatever I paid, let us assume I have paid 10 lakhs rupees as pre-EMI interest over the last, whatever, 3 years, 4 years, or even 1 year for that matter. Then the entire amount that I've paid, my dear friends, I divide it by 5. And for the next 5 years, I can claim that pre-EMI interest. But that interest is also guided by the same set of rules, carry forward and set of rules that we just discussed, where I put the table and I showed you the chart. All those limits equally apply to pre-EMI interest also. So it will fall within the same category. If it is self-occupied, my pre-EMI is also restricted to 2 lakhs. If it is let out, it is limitless, but against other head of income, it is limited to 2 lakhs only. So that's the critical point when it comes to pre-EMI interest, my friends. Next thing, what about the principal component? So obviously, when I'm taking a loan and I'm making a repayment, there is a principal component, there is an interest component also. So therefore, the interest component is claimed in house property. What about the principal component? You can very much claim the principal component, but it has to be claimed under section 80C, my dear friends. So whatever guides your PPF payment, LIC payment, even your all other payments that you are making, maybe children's education, all of this gets covered under 80C. Under that same head, your principal repayment for your housing loan also gets covered. So therefore, that means it has a hard limit of 1,50,000. So whether you are paying 10 crores also as a repayment, it does not matter. Your ATC is capped at 1,50,000, my dear friends. But at least it is a beneficial amendment. So we must be happy with that. Next, let us ask about deductions for repairs. Now, till now, I repeatedly kept saying, when you're buying a property, you're taking a loan for your property. What about in these cases? It's very clear I'm taking a housing loan. What if I want to repair my property? I've been staying in the property for many years. I've been offering it to tax for many years. Suddenly, after 10, 15 years, I want to do some major renovation work over there, or I want to do major repairs work. So here, can I claim whatever loan I've taken, I've paid interest for the renovation or the repair cost? Can I claim that also as a loss from house property? Now here it is very specifically said, if I'm doing any interest or paying any interest on loan for repairs and renovation, then up to 30,000 rupees only I can claim it. I cannot claim beyond. So the 1,50,000 limit, sorry, the 2 lakh limit that we discussed and against other heads of income, etc., don't bother because it is capped at 30,000 rupees. Now, naturally, the first thing you are going to ask over here is when you're saying repairs and renovation, what if I'm doing a major renovation? I've been staying in a house for many years now. Then suddenly what I decide is I want to demolish the house and I want to build a new house on that. So I'm demolishing the house. I'm going to start constructing a new house. I've taken a loan for the same. I've taken a loan to reconstruct the house. In this case, what interest extent can I claim to? Am I limited because deduction towards repairs and renovations is restricted to 30,000 rupees? Or can I claim up to 2 lakhs as we saw in the previous slide, my dear friends? That's a very, very interesting question, right? Because what I'm doing here can be construed to be a renovation also. So here, where there is demolition and construction of a new house or construction of a new building or property, it is as if you are building a new house only. So therefore, the limit of 2 lakh rupees that we saw in the previous slide is applicable even in those cases. So if you are constructing any pre-EMI interest you are paying, you can claim that. Any interest on a borrowing you are paying, you can claim that. So this is definitely a beneficial provision. There's nothing specific on this point anywhere in the Act, but definitely you can claim the same when you are preparing your computation statement, my dear friends. Now, we all discussed initially that the concept of taxation under house property is purely based on ownership. The moment I said that, people who are familiar with the law in the chat box started putting, so what about deemed owner? Deemed owner, you have not covered Abhishek, etc. So that's a very, very good point over here, my dear friends. So can deemed owner be covered? Is there something known as deemed owner? Yes. In certain specific circumstances, other than the owner, somebody else can be taxed. What are these specific owners? Because so far you're discussing only owner, only owner. Now I'm telling you, other than the owner also you can tax. But which are the circumstances where other than the owner can be taxed? Where there's a transfer to a spouse or minor child for inadequate consideration. My dear friends, tax planning is a very important tool. If I have a family of 4 people, then each person has a basic exemption limit up to 2,50,000. So therefore, what I'm saying is, I already have 2 houses in my name. I'm already getting rental income. So my salary also I'm getting. So my tax is coming in the 30% slab. So what I'm telling my wife, I'm telling you don't have any property in your name. So I'll transfer this property to your name. What I will do, I will transfer this property to your name. So when I transfer it to your name, whatever tax you're getting up to 2,50,000 is exempt. So you can either avoid tax or you can pay at the rate of 10% or 5%, whatever is the lower rate of tax. Oh, that seems to be a great tax planning tool. Why aren't everybody doing this? I'll tell you why. When you are transferring to a spouse or minor child for inadequate consideration, that means I'm giving it to her for free. Then in those cases, for the purposes of income tax, it is as if I am only the owner because I have not got the true value of the property, my dear friends. I am doing it purely as a tax planning device. So therefore, in these circumstances, I am writing a settlement or I am writing a transfer to her, a gift deed I am writing. In these cases, it will be considered to be a transfer for inadequate consideration. Therefore, in the eyes of the income tax, Abhishek is still the owner of the property. He only has to offer it to tax, even though on record, the owner is my wife. That's a very, very important point when it comes to deemed ownership. The second is where there is an impartible estate. There may be circumstances where you have a very large family and a very large property is there. Everybody is staying in the same building. This is how joint families have been lived in India for very, very often. This is more common up north, but we see it in south also in many places. So a joint family is a very, very common scenario in India. So therefore, where there's an impartible estate, where you cannot divide the estate in any manner, then in those cases, the owner, whoever the title deeds of that house is in, they will be considered the owner for the eyes of the income tax, my dear friends. Similarly, where there's an allotment by a cooperative society. This is very common in Bombay, where in Maharashtra, allotment by the cooperative society is done. So technically, I am not the owner. I'm allotted a house by the cooperative society, which is the owner, but actually I'm making a payment equal to the value of the property only. So whoever is transferring their cooperative society ownership or allotment to me, I have to pay them the full value of the house. So in these cases where there's an allotment to a cooperative society, that is also considered to be a deemed owner, even though it will records, it will be in the name of the cooperative society. I've got the allotment, so I'm the owner. Now the third one, our ownership by part performance of a contract. So let us assume over here, Mr. Vaidyanathan is there. Vaidyanathan is a very good friend of mine. So what I'm saying is, Mr. Vaidyanathan, I have a property and I want to sell this property to you. He says, okay, I'm very, very happy to buy it. So he gives me the consideration. What do? I give him the keys to the house. I give him everything in the house. I say, please go ahead, do whatever you want. You want to demolish the house also, you demolish. But we still haven't registered. We haven't completed the registration. Mr. Vaidyanathan and I say, if we go for registration, there's going to be a lot of registration cost, stamp duty, other costs which are going to be incurred over there at the registrar. Mr. Vaidyanathan says, I'm going to be here only for 6 years. My transfer will come, so I'll have to move after 6 years. So in these 6 years, I will stay in the house. I've paid you for the full share. You do what you want with the money. I'll do what I want with the house. But after 6 years, I will transfer this house. I will sell it to somebody else. So when I'm selling it, Abhishek, you come and you sign in the sub-registrar. So I say, okay, sir. Now here, technically, as per sub-registrar records, I am still the owner. For 5 years, Mr. Vaidyanathan is living there. He has the keys to the house. He's given me the full payment. But on record, he is not the owner. I am the owner. So therefore, here in these scenarios, the point that the income tax law has made for part performance of contract, when for all practical purposes, every transaction in order to transfer ownership is done, registration is a mere formality. In all of these circumstances, Mr. Vaidyanathan will be treated to be the owner, even though it is Abhishek's name on the sub-registrar. In fact, you will see this commonly for people who are in the US. Now, I am somebody who's living in the US. I have given a power or something in the name of my father to negotiate. And he has done everything, but finally, sub-registrar, I have to come and sign. Due to COVID, last 18 months, I have not come to India. And I cannot come even this December. What is going to happen? Because now he has paid me the money. I have given him the house keys. But I have not signed in the sub-registrar. For the purposes of income tax, they have said very clearly, in these cases, it is as if the transfer is complete. Be it for capital gains, be it for income from house property, the transfer is complete. So therefore, you are a deemed owner now, even though as per records, you are not the owner. And finally, this is a odd one, because where a person acquires right, there's a transfer or sale by lease for more than 12 years, allowing possession, then on a case-to-case basis, he will be considered to be an owner. If I enter into a 99-year lease, it is more than a 12-year lease. I have paid almost the entire sum in advance, or I have to pay only guaranteed payments every month or every year, then it will be considered I am the owner. But even though as per law, this condition is there, very rarely I see the income tax do this. It is more beneficial for all parties to treat it to be a renter, not as an owner, not a transfer of ownership, but tax the owner of the house as a rental income instead of a deemed ownership condition over here. So what are certain extra deductions? What are some tax saving tips we can give over here? Now, the first extra deduction is a new provision. This is not traditionally there. It came out 2 years back. It was introduced in the budget called Section 80EEA. So they said if these conditions are met, then in addition to whatever we discussed so far, up to 1,50,000, you can claim extra deduction, they have said. What is this 1,50,000? They have said, where a loan has been sanctioned between 1st of April 2019 to 31st of March 2021. So it had an end date. You should have got your loan before, on or after 1/4/2019, or you should have got it before 31st of March 2021. So in this period, if any of you have taken a housing loan, then if the stamp duty value of the house, when you purchase the house, the stamp duty value does not exceed 45 lakhs, it is within 45 lakhs, and the carpet area of the house is within 60 square meters, if you are a metro city, that is Delhi, Bombay, Calcutta, Chennai, or 90 square meters in other areas, then in that case, you can take interest deduction up to rupees 1,50,000 in addition also, my dear friends. But they said 2 conditions. You should also not own any other house. Not only these conditions, You should not own any other house. Plus, this is available only to individuals. So HUF company, etc., nobody else can claim this. Only an individual should be able to do this. So this is an extra deduction in case. Now, anyway, if you are planning to take now, that period is over. You cannot no longer enjoy this. But if you have taken deduction so far in this period, you have taken a housing loan in this period, you happen to satisfy the condition number 2 and condition number 3, go happily, you can take the benefit of 1,50,000 as an additional deduction. So remember, I told you some deduction is capped at that point. Here you can take the additional deduction also, my dear friends. So now another very interesting question: subletting a house. You see the screenshot on the screen. It is from this very famous movie called Anbeva. I just thought, what would happen in this scenario? In this scenario, a person is given the house to a caretaker, or let us assume I've rented the house to you, my dear friends. So I've rented the house to Mr. Selvakumar. Mr. Selvakumar over here, what he does is, without my knowledge or with my knowledge, he decides to sublet the house. He says, Abhishek has let out the house to me. So what I'm going to do, there are some very, very interesting tenants that I can find. Mr. Abhishek is busy in some other projects, so he's not caring that much about this house. But I can find tenants who will pay me more than what I have paying him. So he finds a tenant. So let us assume Mr. Pradyumna as his tenant. So he does, Mr. Pradyumna, I will let out this property to you. Mr. Pradyumna is very excited. He says, okay, I will pay. So he pays this person, Mr. Selvakumar, he pays an amount to him. But it does not come to me. Selvakumar pays me the amount we have agreed. Other than that, Selvakumar has sublet the house to somebody else and he is getting an income on the same. In this scenario, my dear friends, can you tell me what head of income will this income be taxable? Now, here we are very clear. We already discussed that taxation is based on ownership. So therefore, here he is not the owner. Mr. Selvakumar is not the owner, even though he very smartly sublets it. Even though the rental agreement allows him to sublet it, he is not the owner. So therefore, in all cases of subletting, the income will be taxable as income from other sources only, not under house property. So for those of you who are wondering why we are spending so much time, which head of income, is because please remember, under income from house property, you get 30% standard deduction, free deduction. Nobody is going to question where this deduction came from. Other than that, interest on the housing loan also you can claim up to a certain limit. My dear friends, it's a highly beneficial thing. It is a highly beneficial thing under house property where up to 30% no questions asked. Whereas in the house property, every deduction that I'm claiming will be questioned, asking why you are claiming it. Is it exclusively connected with this? And I cannot get up to 30%. Maybe interest I have paid for the house I can claim, but I can definitely not claim a standard 30% deduction in addition to that. So having it taxed under house property is hugely beneficial to all assessees, my dear friends. So that is why people prefer it to be taxed under house property income other than other heads of income. So now we'll come to the next question. Sir, there is a land which is owned by my friend. I built a building on that land over here. I built a building on that land. Now here, can you tell me who has to offer the rental income on this? Because I am offering it to rent. Somebody comes and stays, or somebody comes and pays me rent on this. Who has to offer the rental income over here? So here's a very, very interesting condition, because the land is owned by someone, the building is owned by somebody else, and then rental income is earned. Now here, how you have to check is what is the primary purpose of paying the rent. If the primary purpose is to take that shell of that property, then in that case, yes, rent can be offered by me because he is paying it to me. If I tell him, you take the land part of it, you leave the building, whether he will agree, he may not. Or where it is properly divisible. If in the rental agreement, I am bringing out clearly, for the parking and land that you are taking, you have to pay so much rent. For the building, you have to pay so much rent. Then for the land purpose, X will offer. For the building purpose, I will offer, my dear friend. So this is how you do it in a case where the land is owned by someone, yet the building is owned by somebody else. Now let us come to the TDS aspects, because this is a more recent development. Earlier, TDS on rent was normally not applicable for individuals and HUFs. Then they said it is applicable for individuals and HUFs where tax audit is applicable. Then they said now it is applicable for everyone. So now anybody who takes a property on rent, if they satisfy the following conditions, have to deduct TDS on the same. What are the conditions? Where any individual or HUF is paying a rent exceeding rupees 50,000 per month. So if you are paying a rent of 50,000 or more per month, then compulsorily you have to deduct TDS on the same. Second, what rate I have to deduct the TDS? If the person I am paying to, that is the owner of the house, has a PAN number and he's given me the PAN number, then I will deduct the TDS at 5%. Or suppose he does not have a PAN number, or he's unwilling to share the PAN number. I've seen this in many cases. Some people, they refuse to share their PAN number or PAN card details to the tenant. In those cases, what should he do? Should he deduct TDS at all? Against what name he will do it? So here they have said, if there is no PAN details, then it should be deducted at the rate of 20%. So I'm giving you 50,000 as rent, my dear friends. That means 5%. If you deduct on the same, it is 2,500 rupees. How will I pay? I will pay him 47,500 only as the rent every month. To the owner, landlord, I will pay 47,500. He'll ask, where is the balance 2,500? I will say, I have remitted to the government. I have remitted to the government, sir. You file a return and you claim it as a refund. That is how it is done. So 5% is okay. But if I am deducting 20%, that is 10,000 rupees. So every month is 50,000 rupees rent. I'm giving him only 40,000. I'm saying 10,000 I have paid to the government, you claim it as a refund. Then definitely he will furnish the PAN number to you. So it is in order to deter people from who are not refusing to furnish their PAN number. They will deduct, if they don't produce the PAN number, it will be deducted at 20%, my dear friends. So when it should be deducted? At the time of credit or payment, whichever is earlier, that is very obvious. What will happen if I don't do it? Suppose I refuse to do it. I am not aware of the law, or I refuse to do it. I am saying so many years I have done. Why suddenly they are complicating things? I will not do it. What will happen? A penalty of 1% will be levied, my dear friends, if it is not deducted. Or if you are deducting and you are not remitting, I am deducting on my landlord. I don't like that fellow. So I am not going to put it to the income tax. I'll say, you do what you want, we will see. Suddenly, at the time of filing return, he realizes you have deducted, but you have not remitted it to the government. What will he do? You will receive a penalty of 1.5% per month plus 1% per month, my dear friends. And not only that, it is very much a prosecutable offense. If you are deducting TDS and you are not remitting, it is a prosecutable offense, my dear friends. The government and the department will take it very, very seriously if they receive a complaint against you. So, okay, I am not a defaulter. I'm not going to do all that. Whatever as per law, I'm going to follow. So I have deducted it. I've remitted to the government also. Then what I should do? You have to file what we call Form 26QC. So if I'm deducting it for the month of August, then from the end of August, I have 30 days time to file this 26QC form. So I have to go online to the NSDL website, TAM website, fill up a form. It's a very straightforward form. If you have any difficulties, you go with your auditor, he'll be able to do it for you. So you fill form 26QC, and once you fill that form, you will get a certificate. Take a print, put it in your file, give a certificate to the landlord also. So this is how you do TDS on rent, my dear friends. Next, of course, GST. GST aspects, I'm just briefly touching on it. So renting your immovable properties technically does come as what we call supply of services for the purposes of GST. But here they have very clearly said, where the property is let out for residential purposes, then it is exempt from GST. But if it is commercial purposes or the activity is commercial in nature, then my dear friends, it is very much taxable under GST. But of course, it goes without saying, you have the limit of GST up to 20 lakhs, exemption is very much there. So up to that, if you are having even from commercial property, you need not pay GST on it. But one more point is, if you are having a rent which is being earned from a charitable or religious trust, where the rent for the room is within 10,000 per day, then you don't have to pay any GST on the same. What do I mean by this? When they say room let out by religious or charitable trust, normally it means wedding hall. So if you are going to a wedding hall and that wedding hall is less than 10,000 rupees per day, then don't worry, you don't have to worry about GST. But the moment it crosses 10,000 per day, then very much GST is applicable on the same. And of course, GST is on services. This is technically considered to be a service. So therefore, the rate will come at the rate of 18%. So let us finally come to what are the key tax saving tips when it comes to your income from house property, my dear friends. The first thing is the most important one. As I told you, I'm sorry, the second thing is the most, first one I told you, 2 houses can be shown as self-occupied without any notional rent. So you don't have to worry about that. What about the next one? My dear friends, I told you there is a limit up to 2 lakhs rupees as an interest from your housing loan that you have taken. This limit is applicable on each owner. That limit is applicable to each owner. So if I have bought a house property and I'm paying back the housing loan and the interest on the housing loan happens to be 10 lakh rupees, it happens to be 10 lakh rupees, then it is better for you to own the house with 5 people. It is in my name, it is in my wife's name, it is in my father's name, my mother's name, it is also there in my HUF name. So in 5 names, the house property is owned, my dear friends. That means that limit of 2 lakh rupees, I can enjoy individually up to 2 lakhs. I get 2 lakhs limit, my wife gets 2 lakhs limit, my mother gets 2 lakhs limit, my father gets 2 lakh limit, plus the HUF also gets 2 lakh limit, my dear friends. So therefore, it's a 10 lakhs, whatever interest paid, I get the full exemption of it without any limit. And each person can set it off against their other heads of income there. So this is the key critical tax planning tool, because when the government, when the CBDT are coming and limiting whatever actual interest you are paying, they are saying we will limit it only up to 2 lakhs for set off against other heads. Then when you are already locked in, your only solution is to tax plan like this. So if anybody is buying a high value house on loan, please don't buy it as co-ownership. Don't buy it in a single name. At least buy it in 2 or 3 people if you can, or you have people in the house where you can, so that you can claim, each person can claim the benefit of this housing loan deduction, my dear friends. Next one. So take ownership in multiple names, as I told you. Self-occupy or show as self-occupied. The house property is the highest market rate of rent. I told you the gross annual value, it is determined on a reasonable rate or whatever is the market rent rate. So therefore, if I have an option, I am staying in a house and I'm letting out the other house, or assuming I have 3 houses, all 3 are vacant, all 3 are self-occupied, then your best choice would be to show whatever highest market value. I told you example of a house in the heart of Nungambakam, heart of Egmore. So these are house properties which get a reasonable good rent. So therefore, it may be preferable you show that as self-occupied and show whatever house you have in the outskirt of the city as let out. So on a notional basis, you can tax that, because the rental rate of the outskirt property will be much lesser than the city property. So this might seem, you may think very crass, why so much tax planning and all. If you have to save the taxes, this is required. So this is a tool for tax planning, my dear friends. And the last point, as you can see over here, I've highlighted it and I bolded it. Casual vacancy allowance. This is the final slide, because I'm going to give you a very, very interesting example. And this is a very practical case. This is a real case. I'm not giving a imaginary case over here. So what happened is, one gentleman, he decided he wanted to construct a commercial building. So after great loans and a lot of planning, he decides to construct it. And it took him almost 3 to 4 years to construct this building. So he finishes the construction. He is very happy. He wants to market it and let it out on rent. But unfortunately for him, the day he's completed the property, the day he's going to make the announcement, places are available for rent. Government also makes an announcement saying metro rail project we are starting. And the main station is coming just outside his building. Just outside his building, metro rail station is going to be constructed. So what they do, they block the entrance to the building. They block the exit to the building. So no car, no bike also can go inside. See, anybody who has to go, they have to walk. Only a single person can walk, and in one row they can walk. So whether he'll be able to let out this building, will any person want to come and stay there? Because that property is going to be worth, the metro rail is going to take at least 3 years to complete, and knowing how much time they take in India, probably longer. So when this is the case, my dear friends, what is going to happen to the gentleman? Because I told you notional rent, and it's a commercial property, more than 10 houses or 10 commercial properties are there inside that building. So is he forced to offer tax on income which he can never earn? This is a very, very critical point of what we call a casual vacancy allowance. There's a section called section 23, my dear friends. Very wording is very, very vague. Where the property is let out and is vacant for whole or part of the year. Very silly, you know. They are saying property is let out and is vacant for whole of the year. Whether it is possible, I don't know. Wording seems very funny. So here we have to understand what they mean. Casual vacancy allowance is given to cases where the assessee attempts to let it out, but it is impossible to let it out. Let us take a scenario. Many of you here who are familiar with the city of Chennai know that the outskirts of Chennai, there are properties in OMR. Very often you just drive down that road, you will find large number of properties which are there. They have completed the construction, but they have not let it out, especially after COVID. They have put huge hoardings and all saying flats available at such a very, very low rate of rent is there. Please come and buy, please come and take. So many advertisements are coming in the paper, yet no takers. So here, these people are being forced to pay a notional rent when it is impossible for them to pay. They have not earned anything to pay a notional rent. And it is not that by choice they are not letting it out. It is impossible to be let out for them. So here the law carves out an allowance for them. There the assessee demonstrates that he tried to let out the property and the property has not been lettable or nobody wants to take the property, then in those cases he can claim it as a vacancy allowance and does not have to pay tax on that. Even if I have more than two properties self-occupied, from the third property onwards, if I am not able to let it out, I can claim casual vacancy allowances. Now, already many people have put in the chat box, sir, what stops me from simply saying casual vacancy allowance in my case? I tried, sir. I asked all my neighbors. Nobody wanted my property. So therefore, casual vacancy allowance. I'm just kidding. I don't want to pay notional tax. I'm claiming casual vacancy allowance. So here the law is very clear. They are saying you must be able to demonstrate that you tried. Asking my neighbors is not demonstration, but putting an ad in a paper, putting an ad in Facebook and all other public platforms, trying by negotiating with different people, checking what is the market rate, offering it a rate lower than the market rate. All of these are examples of you trying to let out a house property, but unable to find a tenant. In the example I gave you, metro rail construction, this was very much a case which happened in Bangalore High Court. And the Bangalore High Court said, it is impossible. No sensible tenant will come and stay in that place when their property is going to be blocked for 3 years. So therefore, you cannot simply charge him. Department said, I want to charge notional rent on that fellow. That department was very, very harsh. Then the government said, sorry, the High Court said very clearly it is impossible practically for letting it out. So therefore, you cannot charge on a notional basis in these cases. So therefore, in all of these cases, in fact, you can see a name, very famous name that you see in the third line over here, saying where a house was held by Sachin Tendulkar. In his case also, he claimed casual vacancy allowance, my dear friends. So our favorite cricketer of Indian history has also used this casual vacancy allowance for his favor. So this is the example of all the various tax planning tools that you have in income from house property. So thank you very much for a very, very patient listening, my dear friends. I will take all the questions in the chat box, but before I do that, everyone who has registered, because since your email ID is there on the list, you will be getting the entire subject material for today. You'll get the booklet. You'll also get the presentation for the last program. We are also recording our sessions and it will be hosted. So we will be sending them to you, the links, the YouTube links, so you can watch it, you can share it with your friends as well. And we will also be sharing details of our future programs where we have a line of the best speakers in India lined up. So you will be able to listen to all of them for free. And you can share it with everyone and anybody can join. So thank you so much for a very patient listening. Now I will take the questions. And if you have any questions, I request you, please do put it in the chat box. I'll be more than happy to take the questions, my dear friends. So now I will take the first question. As a senior citizen, I want to transfer 15 DMAT equity forms. Also shares are more than 12 years. Will it be applicable to capital gains? Okay, not relevant to the topic, but sir, to answer, you can transfer, but I told you, remember, you are transferring a property for inadequate consideration. I told in the house property question also, I am giving a house to my wife for free. So this is known as a transfer for inadequate consideration over here. So what we call clubbing of income may apply in your case. My suggestion to you in these scenarios, go meet an auditor. He will help plan it for you. So there are ways you can get around the same, but you need to do it legally. So meet an auditor for his guidance. Sir, how to show, another question on capital gains, how to show long-term capital gain on sale of mutual fund after adjusting permissible limit 112A under the new income tax side. Sir, you have to go to 112A form. You have to fill up that entire schedule. After that, you will be able to claim the 1 lakh. If you don't fill that form, you cannot claim it. There's a very cumbersome and irritating form, but very much applicable. Is TDS applicable for seeds trials activities? I don't understand the question. Ankush, can you just reword it a little bit in more in detail? Thank you. Thanks for planning this program. Okay, thank you very much, sir. Sir, please, okay, go further down. Sir, can I give away a house in my name to my in-laws and allow them to partially let it out to get an income for their living? Will it be taxable in my hands? Ravi Shankar sir, definitely it will be taxable in your hands. As I told you, house property is based on ownership. So how it will happen is whether you are giving the money to them, whether they are living in that, they don't see that. Whoever is the owner, they will see. So if you are the owner, you have to offer it to tax. But whatever income you are collecting, you can gift it to them, because a gift to an in-law is not taxable. So you can gift the money to them. So that is not a problem. But the tax has to be paid by you. Sir, what about farmhouse? How will it be taxable? If there is a farmhouse, whether it is a farmland or whether we call commonly now, many people have a house in the outskirts of the city. They call it the farmhouse. If there is a building, appurtenant to the land, then it is considered to be house property, and you have to offer it under income from house property only. Sir, what about deemed owner? Okay, I think this came before I covered it. Sir, this is the objective of business important. Yes, Shastri sir, the objective of business is very much important. I think this question is under which head I should offer it. If my objective of my business is to let out properties, I am regularly letting out properties, that is my source of income, then I will offer it under PGBP, under business profession. If I'm regularly not doing, I'm a chartered accountant, I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, I just happen to build a commercial building, I am getting rental income regularly from it, it will be income from house property. Sir, in whose hands income from house property settled in the favor of children with life interest will be taxed? The settlor or the settlee? It will very much be taxed in the hands of the settlor, because here you are likely going to be settling it for inadequate consideration. As I told you, for inadequate consideration. So then in those cases, it will be taxable in your hands. Once after the person or a will, when the will is executed after the death of an assessee, then in those cases it will be taxed in the son's hands, because this person is no more. So what is the tax situation when commercial property is vacant for a full year? Vasudev sir, there is no difference. For the purposes of house property or commercial property, there is no distinction. As I told you, if you can show the vacancy allowance, then in those cases you can claim the house property or the commercial property as a zero value. But if you cannot, then you are forced to offer notional taxes on the same, whether it is commercial or residential. Sir, what could be any other benefit derived by the owner? So if instead of rental income, you are trying to show it to be some other income, you are saying I am getting a charges for providing electricity, I am getting charges for providing the services. You are merely using the name of services instead of using rental income. So therefore, in all of the cases, you can consolidate and offer it there. Or if you are someone who wants to take a risk, you can offer it under income from other sources, but you are going to lose your 30% deduction, my dear friends. So that is the clear distinction between the two. Sir, if the house property, sorry, question got skipped. Sir, rental income 15 lakhs, agricultural income 15 lakhs. Whether GST registration required? It depends on the nature of your agricultural income. If it is from a similar activity, because for the purposes of GST, each type of service, each type of business, you can get a separate registration. It need not be the same type of registration for all. So if depending on your activity, if it is different from each other, you can see it as two separate limits of 15 lakhs each. So you don't have to worry about. I hope I'm audible. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Sorry, there was a disconnection in the internet. So I'm just taking the question from where I left off. Okay, two properties, should they be in the same location or same city? Okay, that's a very good question, because there is a common doubt as to whether the property should be in the same city. Now, let us take an example. If this question is more relevant in a scenario where I am claiming house rent allowance, HRA allowance I am getting as a salary, and I happen to be a owner of a property also. So now I might be working in Pune and my office or my house may be in Chennai. So therefore, there is a condition in HRA saying if you're an owner of a house, then you cannot claim HRA. So if your owner or a dependent is an owner, you cannot claim HRA. But that's not applicable if it is in the same city. If I'm now working in Pune and my house is in Chennai, it is impossible for me to pay rent or to stay in my own house. I am forced to pay rent. So in those cases, there's no restriction on your HRA. But as far as claiming the property for self-occupied, then they do not see which city and all, they see number of houses only, sir. Sir, last 2 years, I couldn't get tenants due to COVID-19 lockdown. Both houses were vacant. Sir, as I told you, you can very much claim vacancy allowance, but you should have demonstrated. You put an ad in the paper, you have tried to get some tenants there. So at least once or twice you have put an ad, keep the cutout of the ad, keep the proof that you have asked for it. Then very much you can claim a vacancy allowance on the same. My suggestion, go meet an auditor. He will guide you better on this point. So if the house is co-ownership and rented, can only 1% show rental income in the ITR. Sir, if it is very easy for you to distinguish, now let us assume there is one property. I am purchasing this property with, let's say, Dayalan sir is there. So I'm purchasing with Dayalan sir. So both of us are the owner of this property. I am saying all the rooms on the left-hand side of the house is mine. All the rooms on the right-hand side is yours. So therefore, if I'm having a tenant who's staying on the right-hand side, then Dayalan sir only has to offer it to tax. If he is staying on the left-hand side, then I have to only offer it to tax. But here, the demarcation is very clear. But if I'm the co-owner with my wife, we will not say that left is yours, right is mine, all that. So you will just say 50-50% owner. So both of you have to show the rental income in your books or in your assessment. Good evening. Rent on commercial shed. Can 25% be deduction is eligible? No, sir. If it becomes commercial shed, there we have to be very clear over here because this terminology is very, very wide. If it is a land and it's having just a mere shed on that, I am just wearing a mere shelter just to park the cars or to park the bikes like that. I'm having a shelter. Asbestos sheet I'm putting and keeping. Then that is not considered to be a house property, my dear friends. So that will be taxed only under income from other sources. However, if I'm doing a nice parking facility like a commercial parking, now we are seeing in Chennai, in many places, this commercial buildings have come for parking. In the US, it is very, very common where there are entire buildings just meant for parking the cars so that nobody parks on the road. So if you're having a complex like that, just to park the cars, then in those cases, my dear friends, you can claim it to be an income from house property. It will be a commercial property. But a mere shed and all, you cannot take it as house property. So 30% deduction will not come. Sir, if a building is constructed on a leasehold land, which head the income needs to be declared? Sir, if it's your building, you have constructed it, you are getting rental income, you can claim it under income from house property, even though the owner of the land is somebody else. You are the owner of the building, and that is why you are letting it out. So if we sell house property, how can we do tax planning in case neither we purchase any new house or used proceeds for constructing a new house? Sir, you can claim 54EC, which is investing in bonds, or you can do an indexation of your cost of acquisition or improvement if you have any. My suggestion once again, Raghuveer sir, go meet an auditor. He will be able to help you plan this better. But there are a lot of avenues which you can do. Sir, if the tax is paid by a third party to corporation, but the assessee paid to the third party, which year can it be claimed? You can claim it the year it is paid to the corporation, sir. Paying to the third party, showing the distinction is going to be a little difficult for you. Sir, my client's tenant did not pay rent for a very long time. Case was filed for fair rent and evacuation. After getting vacant possession, sold the house property. Now the case is decided and the court asked the defaulting tenant to pay 8 lakhs. Can I show the income received as income from house? Definitely you can show, sir. There are two things over here. If the nature is compensation for rent, then you can show it as income from house property. If it is a lump sum payment for some other purpose, saying that he has a penalty, they are not happy with his behavior, so a lump sum payment is directed by the court, then you can even claim it as a capital receipt, completely exempt from tax. So there is a good tax planning opportunity here. Once again, I would advise, if you look through the High Court order, you may be able to decide how you can claim it, whether capital in nature or whether it is income from house property. But you can definitely claim it as income from house property. You can claim the deduction also as unrealized rent received now. Sir, as stated, water tax is considered municipal tax, whether it includes water tax paid by water bill to DJB? If so, can electricity bill? No, electricity bill and all you cannot claim, sir. I have a question from last week. Shankaran sir, you can just message me, sir. I'll be happy to answer that question. Sir, is rupees 30,000 for repairs and renovation in addition to what we discussed of up to 2 lakhs? No, sir, it is inclusive. That 2 lakh limit is a cap for each thing. So all your interest paid together, it is a cap. Pre-EMI interest, your renovation interest, new house property interest, everything together has to be capped at 2 lakh rupees, sir. Sir, if one constructs a floor above ground and takes a loan and interest is 30,000, can he deem it as new construction? Yes, in my view, Ram Kumar sir, if you're constructing a new floor, it is like constructing a new house. You can definitely claim up to 2 lakhs and not limit it to 30,000. Sir, which channel is this streamed on YouTube? We will share it. We will share the YouTube links. We will have a channel for the All India Taxpayer Association. We will share the same with you, but it will not be uploaded immediately because some editing, etc. needs to be done, but it will be uploaded. We will be sharing the links with you shortly. Sir, is 80 EEA one-time deduction? You can claim up to the level of interest you have or one time, whichever you prefer, sir. Property is let out 90,000 per month, which is equally shared by two brothers who are co-owners. Is TDS applicable? No, it is once again, in my view, this is a very, what do you say, a vague area because it's split into two. My view is definitely TDS is not applicable because the payment is 45,000 and 45,000. Only if it crosses 50,000 is TDS to be applicable. But ensure that person who's making the payment, he makes the payment in two formats, 45,000 and then 45,000. He does not make 90,000 payment because if he does that, then TDS may become applicable. Sir, if excess TDS is deducted on rent and correction on Form 26 QC is filed, how do you get the refund of the excess TDS deducted? So either they can adjust in the next month when they are paying the rent, or you can claim it as a refund when you are filing the return. That would be the either opportunity. Sir, you said if tenant pays more than 50,000 as rent, they can deduct TDS. Suppose the tenant pays rent for two landlords. Okay, I think same question is worded differently. As I told you, as long as for each person is within 50,000, you can very much say no TDS is applicable. Sir, can two self-occupied house property be applicable only to residential property, or can we claim on commercial property also? Sir, on commercial also, when I say house property income, it means commercial property also. The heading of the income, the head of the income is called income from house property, but it includes house property also, it includes commercial property also. Sir, fantastic presentation. Thank you. Thank you so much. Sir, in very clear, in explaining and understandable language. Okay, thank you, sir. End-to-end presentation. Thank you so much. What happens if the property is there, not shown in the ITR as self-occupied house property? Rohit sir, this is a very important point. As I told you, if it is self-occupied, people are tempted not to show it because it is nil value, but you must show it in your ITR return when you are filing. Similarly, you have to choose the right ITR form. If you have more than one house property or there's any co-owner, then you cannot file ITR 1. You must file under ITR 2 only. Even if the rent is zero from one property, even if it is casual vacancy is there, even in all cases, you must disclose the property and file it in ITR 2 accordingly. So this is a very, very important point that many people tend to miss out because ITR 1 is a simpler form. People are tempted to go there. My view, even if it's ITR 2, even if it is after all just because of one property, you must ensure you file it. Sir, please suggest what all exemption can be claimed for let out commercial property. Sir, the same thing. House property, commercial property, exactly the same. No distinction between what you can claim here, claim there. Sir, if property is rented, can the rented property be shown as self-occupied? No, it cannot be shown as self-occupied. You must offer it to tax. So what happens when I am giving my third house to my parents or in-laws on free of rent basis? Sir, if you have three properties and all three are self-occupied, then I'm very sorry. One of the properties, you must choose it to be let out. You don't have an option over here. One has to be notional let out. I'd suggest you choose wherever the market rent rate is very low. You choose that to be the notional rent out property. Sir, if one house of two is used for profession, like a CA or a doctor, then will it be taxed on a notional value? It's a good question. Definitely, it will be taxed on a notional value because it does not see the distinction about how it is used. But if you are converting the house into a what do you say, a stock in trade, you're converting the capital asset into a stock in trade, then you can claim depreciation, etc. So that is one other tax planning avenue. So you can take a call, because you are a chartered accountant, I can see, sir. So you can take a call based on how you want to do it for yourself. So what happens when I'm giving my third? Okay, same question. Amazing presentation. Oh, thank you so much, sir. Casual vacancy can be claimed for how many properties? Can be claimed. How many ever you have? I have 50 properties. All the 50 properties I am not able to let out. I can claim all as long as I have the proof that I have tried to let it out. Excellent presentation. So I am selling a property for worth 1.5 crores and there are two buyers. At what rate should TDS be deducted? This is a different one, because if you are selling it to NRI, then TDS of course will be deducted at 20% of the sale consideration. You can get a form 13 at a lower rate, and you can deduct it at a lower rate. But if you're selling it to a resident, it's at 1%. So this is how TDS is done. NRI means 20%. I would suggest whenever you are transacting with NRI, go to a CA, get their guidance, because they can do a lot of planning here. Generally, when it comes to property sales, the time involved is very less. So you need to plan it very, very efficiently. Okay, Pawan Kumar here, leading CA from Hyderabad. Can you please explain the eligibility to claim top-up loan? I think claiming the top-up loan is something which will vary from each bank to bank. If you are eligible, you can very much claim it and subsequently allow it also. We'll take a scenario. 5 years I have a loan. I have claimed all the interest on the loan from my property. It is done. Suddenly, after 2 years, I am getting a top-up loan. It is being approved. For whatever reason, there is a delay. Once again, I am paying interest on loan. Having settled it after 5 years, and 2 years I have not taken any loan, there's no interest I have paid. Suddenly in the 6th or 7th year, again I am paying interest. You can very much adjust it against your rental income. There's nothing wrong in it. You can very much claim the same, but all the limits apply. Whatever limits we have discussed, everything applies. So property is rented for residential purpose to a private limited, whether GST is applicable. If it is used, okay, this is a what do you say, a vague area. There's a lot of varied views on this. You have to see what is the purpose the company is using it for. If the company is using it for residential purposes, it is a residential property. In my view, you need not deduct GST on it. But there are circumstances where the views have been taken. If it is used for employee quarters, it is used as a commercial property, then GST has to be deducted. But I think you can take my stand. It's more aggressive, but it's very much something which can be defended. So in case of commercial property, can two agreements be made first and space second for furniture? So why you want to do that? Because if you are selling a property, I know for structuring, some people do all that. But my view, Sandeep sir, if it is house property, it is better for you to get it as rental income, because you are getting 30% standard deduction. If you are putting a separate agreement for the furniture, then that will be taxable as income from other sources. You don't get any standard deduction. Better you let it out as income from house property. That is better planning. Very practical tips. Thank you so much, sir. So in case of commercial property, can do, okay, same thing. Salaried employee, how does the new regime? Okay, this is a good question, because I should have covered it. To quickly brief, under the new regime, if I'm letting out a house property and I'm paying interest on the property, then I can very much claim the interest paid, and I can adjust up to 2 lakhs against other heads of income. But if it's a self-occupied property and I'm paying interest on that self-occupied property, I'm paying loan for the interest on self-occupied property. Under the new regime, I cannot adjust it. Even if I paid up to 2 lakhs, I cannot adjust it. So if you're paying interest on your house property loan going under the new regime, your 2 lakh benefit is gone. You cannot claim it. Only if it is let out, you get that benefit. Sir, can one of the joint owners claim ATC and the other person claim deduction interest on? Sir, both of you can claim. Sunil sir, that is the benefit. If there is a co-owner, joint owner is there, both of you can claim ATC, both of you can claim interest also. But one person cannot claim the other. It has to be equal. Nice presentation. Thank you. Beautiful, knowledgeable speech. Thank you so much. Thank you. When I apply housing loan, can I keep multiple owners? It normally the house property also should be multiple owners. The housing loan also should be multiple owners. Okay, excellent session. Thank you so much. Some private limited company carrying on business of building contractor having 3 floors. Okay, sir, I suggest you contact me, because a very long question. We will take it offline. Okay. 2 houses, ground floor, same thing. We put two-let board, no advertisement done. Please advise. Two-let board is also one of the proofs. My suggestion: put an advertisement also in the paper so that you will get the proof of a proper advertisement where you try to let it out. Two-let board, you can install it one day and remove the other day also. So they may not accept that. So putting it in the paper is more concrete. So I think with this, we will wrap up the presentation. There are a lot more questions which are coming. I would suggest feel free to reach out to me. We'll be happy to share the same. I will be sharing the presentation. Many questions have come on the presentation. We will be sharing the presentation for you, both for the last program and this program we'll be sharing. But we request all of you, please do register. When you are joining the program, register with a valid email ID and phone number, because only to that we will be able to send the updates. Due to the high number of registrations, we are forced to do that. So I request all of you, please do register. If you have not registered, it will be open. Registration will be open even after the session. You can go to the same link and submit your email ID and mobile number there. So thank you so much for a wonderful session and a very, very lovely interaction with all. A thoroughly enjoyable session with such a large gathering from all platforms who have joined today. A wonderful presentation. We will request you to please join for all our further programs as well. We will be sharing it with you. Thank you so much. Stay home, stay safe. Take care, all of you. Thank you so much.